Okay, so let's go back to data A. So for this example, I'm going to assume you're going to add 2 columns. You want to break down your data by sex of students as well as by their demographics. So what you want to do is you see the student names, as we've seen before, all the way here on the left. So when we look at row 4, this should be all the information for student 1. When we look at row number 5, this should be all the student information for student 2. And right now, all we're seeing are their answers to the test as well as their percent mastery of each of these objectives. Okay. So if we want to add sex as well as demographics, we're going to go over here and we want to create a new column. You're going to put the title right up here next to the column titles such as objectives, and we're going to write sex, and we're going to write demographics. I'm sorry, we're going to write race here because those are the 2 things we're looking for. So now what you're going to need to do is for each student, you're going to need to input the information of what their sex is and what their race is. I'm going to put a couple examples in here. We're going to start with student 1. Student 1 is African American. I'm sorry, is a male and African American. Student 2 is female, is also African American. Student 3 is female and is white. Now, how you want to choose to identify race is going to be up to you. Whether that's student identified or whether that's what you currently have on your records that you were given, that's going to be your call. Then over here we have male, we have Asian, etc. So this is an example of how you're going to input these additional 2 columns of information. Now you've added, this spreadsheet contains not only student mastery data, but it also contains the information that you're going to use to break down that student mastery and later display it when presenting your student data. Okay? You're going to want to make sure that you fill that out for all the students in your class. So that was data A. I'm going to go ahead and save that. Now let's take a look at data B. Actually, we want to look at data B, the corrected version. Great. So here we have the corrected spreadsheet that we created for data B. We have all our students listed on the left-hand side. We have all of our objectives on the top. Very similar to the last one, we see that row 4 contains all of student 1's data. So we're going to add those columns at the end, just like we did with data set A. And we're going to add sex, and we're going to add race. Again, you want to go through and you want to enter all the information for all your students, just like we did in the last spreadsheet. Okay, and that's just a quick example. It's going to look very similar in all of our spreadsheets. Now, again, your data might look a little bit different within your spreadsheet, different colors as you saw between the last 2, different fonts, some are bolded, some aren't. But the general idea is the same. We want students to each have their own row, and you want their sex and race information to fit in that row along with that student. And so let's save that version of data B. We're going to open up data C. This should look familiar. And again, we see students are over here on the left like we wanted them, and we see that objectives are up here on the top. So we're going to add these columns. We're going to look at row 8 as student 1. So we're going to go all the way to the end of student 1's row. And we're going to add the column sex and the columns race. We're then going to go down and we're going to enter the information for each student. And this is going to set us up for the next tutorial. I'm not quite sure why they're turning pink. They must have some specific formatting turned on. Doesn't really matter. We just want the content of that cell to be correct. Okay? And so that's what we need to do in order to add columns. Now, again, if you're not choosing to break down your data by sex and race, these 2 columns are going to look different for you. Whatever you are choosing to break your data down by, you need to add a column for each of those to make sure that that information now lives in your data spreadsheet. Okay? I'm going to go ahead and save that and close out. So that was tutorial 1, and just a quick check for yourself. You should make sure that you are now able to arrange your data in rows and columns appropriately, like I modeled in samples A, B, and C. B, where we had to actually transpose that data. And this will allow for easier and more efficient aggregation in tutorial 2 and 3. And secondly, teachers should be able to now add any additional columns that will better help to collect and arrange required data.